and let's move to one of our coaches. This is going to be Nate. And as I've talked about on my podcast, on my flagship podcast, Nate is coming out with a new course for Crush Live Poker. I'm not 100% exactly how we're going to release it. We might start sort of releasing it a little by little here in November, but we're definitely going to have 6 of the 9 modules done by, like, say, Thanksgiving. We've been working on it for months. I've been in deep in the weeds. It's called the Blueprint to Crush Live Poker. And it's really great because I've consumed most of it because Ryan Nash and I are actively sort of making it. So what's going on, Nate?
Hey, what's up, Bart?
Nate, did you hear me with the Blueprint to Crush Live Poker?
I was listening to it on YouTube.
Okay.
So my YouTube's a little bit behind, apparently, so I didn't hear it all.
Okay. So like I said, Nate's got this great course that's coming out. We're going to have 6 of the 9 modules definitely released by the end of November. And we might actually have the first few modules. We might release it a little bit piecemeal earlier than that. By the way, before we get into Nate's call, I have to say that the WPT is doing a gigantic free roll here on December 13th at the Wynn. It's a $5 million free roll. All you have to do to get into the drawings that I have for free seats, they've given me a bunch of golden passports, is head over to ClubWPTGOLD.com and sign up with the code BART. Each seat is worth at least $2,500. And it's my understanding that if people don't show up and they've won, they're not putting people in. So if only 1,500 people show up, each seat's going to be worth like $3,300. It's really like the best free roll I think I might have ever heard in live poker. It's $5 million. I'm going to be there. They gave me a seat to play in it. So I will be at the Wynn. Also, as some of the prizes for that free roll, they're giving away 100 WPT championship seats, which are 10K seats. And that starts like the next day at the Wynn. So amazing stuff. You don't even have to do anything. All you have to do is head over to ClubWPTGOLD.com and sign up using the code BART. I think you have to be US and Canadian, and I think like Michigan and Washington State and a couple other small states are prohibited. All right, Nate. So let's get into this. So you're playing out of Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, for sure. And this is going to be in a private game. Real quick, I just wanted to say I'm super excited for the Blueprint to come out and for people to get into it and leave some feedback and stuff. So I'm very happy for that.
Yep. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to releasing it. We haven't had a new course come out since Fast Track, which has been a few years. So is this 510?
This is 5-5-10, but yeah.
5-5-10. Yep.
And I've been saving this for you for a little bit because it's a limp pot. And I know you like limp pots.
Oh, by the way, so it's interesting just as we get into this. So one of our competitors, Upswing Poker, which is owned by Doug Polk. Doug Polk and I are pretty friendly. We went out to a Red Sox game together a few months ago. I got this, I signed up for these emails and I got this email that they're coming out with a course called the Blueprint. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me, right? I was like, what is going on here? So I texted Doug and I was like, yeah, we're doing this course called the Blueprint. We've been like doing it for like 6 months. I just want to let you know ahead of time. And he was really nice about it. He had said that something like that had happened like years ago with Upswing, and another course. I mean, there's only so many words, right, in poker that you can use. All right, so private 5-5-10. How deep here? What are the effective stacks?
We're 4K effective with +1, 3,500 effective with big blind. So 3,500 effective.
So 4K effective with +1 and 3,500 with the big blind?
Yes.
All right. Okay.
And +1 may be one of the worst players I've ever played with. Super fish, and he does like limp re-raises, does a lot of limping in the pots, does some pretty crazy stuff.
So I'm going to put him as a super VIP, maybe? Super VIP?
Yeah, that's probably a good call.
Okay.
And big blind's just a standard villain, I guess. All right. So +1, hijack, button, and big blind limp to me.
+1, hijack, button, and big blind, limp. You're in the straddle?
And I'm in the third blind with King of Diamonds, 10 of Hearts.
King of Diamonds, 10 of Hearts. So limp, 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 limp. And you've got King 10 off. This is interesting here. Are you going to check or are you going to raise? I mean, you do have stack depth. I mean, I would assume King 10 suited is a slam dunk raise for you, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
King 10 suited gets raised all the time.
Do you check?
Yeah, I just check here, especially with +1. loving to have limp re-raises in range,
Yeah.
I felt like it's just best to check and see a flop.
So you're sort of making an adjustment where you've got this guy kind of similar to when like at Hollywood Park, you're sort of like these guys in the 5-5 game, they love to limp re-raise. So you sort of make that adjustment where you don't want to get blown off of your hand. But all right, so we got a limp pot here. It's 1, 2, 3, 5 ways. 55. Okay, 5 ways.
5 ways.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
All right, and the flop comes out king of clubs, 4 of diamonds, 3 of hearts.
King of clubs, 4 of diamonds, 3 of hearts.
Yes, and it checks to me.
Big blind checks. Okay. So the big blind checks, and you've got +1, hijack, and button all in the field that have limped. It's king 4-3, and you have king 10. I mean, in live poker, here's the thing, like, and I've been pretty consistent about this for a long time. There are different, you play limp pots. I play a lot of limp pots at 2-5 at Encore, where you're in this situation where you get a free look in the big blind or in the third blind. And my approach to these spots are the more draw heavy it is, the more I will bet top pair. The more my top pair needs protection, the more I will bet top pair. And what I mean by that is if you had like Jack 8 on 8 deuce 3, okay? The times that I will sometimes check top pair is if it's not all that draw heavy, it doesn't need protection because it's a high top pair. And, you know, maybe I'll try to get some like future streets like later on, but, and also too, if I have a low kicker. So for example, if I had like king deuce in the big, in Nate's spot here, and the board came out king 8-3 rainbow, maybe I might check there some of the time. Here you have king 10, which is kind of interesting because it's sort of like when we think about the types of hands that somebody might limp in with, depending on how wide they are. King 10 is sort of in the middle, right? You'll have guys like limp with king jack, king queen. Sometimes the guys will limp with suited kings here too. So you're sort of in the middle. And I'm just assuming that someone's probably going to raise with like ace king and maybe a lot of king queens here. It's a rainbow board. I mean, there are straight draws out there. There's like ace high wheel draws and things like that. But there's still a little bit of connection. I would still probably tend to bet here. But I think it's kind of close. And again, if it was a 2 flush, I would definitely bet. And again, like if I had like king 3 on maybe king 8 deuce rainbow, maybe that's when I check some of the time. I mean, that's my approach to flopping top pair in a 100 VPIP spot coming from the third blind or the big blind. So here, I think it's probably pretty close. I would tend to do some betting though, especially in a private game.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense. I decided to go 35, mainly because it's just a normal size bet in this game, post flop.
Okay.
I wasn't going for like a large bet, but anything smaller than this would look like small, if that makes sense.
Okay, so hero bets 35.
Yeah, and +1, who's next to act, calls, and then button and big blind also call.
So button call, +1, the sort of big VIP calls, and the button and the big blind overcalls.
Yes.
It's interesting, big blind calls. Okay, so 35, call, 140, so we're at like 195, right? 195?
Yep.
Okay.
195, and we get the 10 of diamonds and the big blind checks.
So now you have top 2, right? You have top 2?
Yeah, for sure.
You have top 2. There's a backdoor diamond draw out there, but you have the king of diamonds in your hand because you said you had king of diamonds, 10 of hearts. So somebody can't have king X of diamonds. It's a slight thing when you start to think about that. And, you know, it's, you know, you're in a good situation. Here's the thing, though. I would say that, you know, sometimes in sort of smaller pots, we think about how do we get more money in the pot? How do we get more money in the pot because it's a small pot? So if we just come out and lead, you know, people are just calling. Could we ever go for a check raise here in this particular spot? I think if you try to go for a check raise here, it might get a little bit tricky just because the VIP call doesn't mean that he has a king. The other guy overcalling. And who knows, like these guys have over limped. That means they're probably not going to have king, queen plus. So like, you don't even know if you're going to get a bet from like king 9, king jack. So I don't try to get tricky with these spots all that much. And I tend to just continue to try to continue with the betting lead here. Now, it's a little bit different in a situation where it's a single raise pot and like we've raised and like 3 people have called and let's say we flop like bottom set and we c-bet the flop and the guy to our direct left calls like on a king 8 deuce board or something like that, and this guy to our direct left calls with like 2 people behind him, and we've got a set of 8s and we know he has a king, and all of a sudden like a turn's a 3 and we're heads up and we know he's going to bet off a king in there, we go for a check raise because we know he's going to bet. This spot's different. It's a limp pot. I don't expect anyone to really have a high king, so I'm not trying to get super tricky with it. That's my take here.
Yeah, that makes sense. What size do you go here?
Well, I mean, the 10 is an overcard, right, to the 3 and the 4. It doesn't connect with any of those straightening cards either. So, I mean, you've got backdoor diamonds out here, but we already established that since someone can't have king X of diamonds. I mean, if they're really wide, they could have 3X of diamonds or turn some sort of straight draw with diamonds. I would go fairly large here. I mean, I probably wouldn't go pot, but I might go like 140, 150, something like that.
Okay. Well, I went pot. I went 200.
Okay. Well, I mean, you know your field a little bit. I mean, if you're telling me that the VIP guy's never going to fold the king anyways.
Yeah, he's definitely not folding the king for sure. And he calls.
+1 calls. Uh-huh.
Button folds.
Uh-huh.
Big blind check raises to 1K.
Wow. To 1,000.
Yes.
Wow. So the VIP guy, just because the VIP still has 3,500. So one of the things that jumps right out at me, I mean, so you'll have to tell me a little bit about this VIP guy, because I think it's going to come into play. Because, there are certain types of there are certain situations, I've talked about this, where if you're at a table with a mix of like some good players and some bad players, and the good players are trying to extract the money from the bad players, you can sometimes get into situations where you're almost turning your hand face up against the other good players and vice versa. Like you can overfold to the good players, they can overfold to you because of who else is in the pot. And the best way to win the most amount of money is from the bad players and just basically shoveling money in. So if the VIP guy from +1 is the type of guy that literally never folds a hand in a spot, I would think that big blind check raise is unbelievably strong. Now, if the VIP guy will fold out like king 5 suited to like a check raise, we can have a discussion about how, and take a look at the combos of like, all right, well, this guy could have a set of 3s or a set of 4s, that's 6 combos. And then whatever this probably like turned backdoor diamond like combo draws that there are here. So you're going to have to tell me a little bit more about this +1 guy, or what your take was here.
Okay, so +1 essentially, if he limps in with strong hands, like say he has ace king here, he's never folding.
Uh-huh.
If he has
because he was going for the limp re-raise, you mean?
Right. So
Yeah.
if he has anything strong left in range, he's never folding any of that.
Mm-hmm.
He would fold maybe like king 5. He probably doesn't fold to the check raise, but he might get rid of it on the river.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely loves to see all 5 cards. Like getting this dude to fold before the river is almost impossible.
The interesting thing about the other thing too is that when you go bet pot, does the big blind ever have a value hand that's worse than your hand when he check raises to 1,000 here? In this spot?
Well, in the moment, I didn't think there was many, if any, at that point.
Because I mean, what could he have here? Like, it's like, I mean, if it's not the other hands, right, are like other kings up, but he overcalled flop just with like king 4, king 3 out of the big blind, didn't raise, and now he's check raising you to 1,000 on the turn. I mean, I guess it's possible. And then the other types of 2 pair, and the same thing with like 3, 4, the other types of 2 pair types of holdings would be like, something that made 10s up, which would have been like he would have had to have overcalled with some piece of 10-4, 10-3. And again, I don't know if he's making it 1,000. So it seems to me like the absolute worst hand that he could have here for value would be the same hand as you. So then you've got king 10 plus for value, and then what, combo draws? Backdoor combo draws?
I actually thought this was going to be like a combo draw, backdoor combo draw a lot, because for the same reasons we think he's going to raise 3-4, which I know he would raise like 3-4 and king 4, king 3. I also think he would put in a raise with like 3-3 or 4-4, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean on the flop? You mean you think that
Right.
there has to be some frequency of him raising flop off, right?
Right, with a lot of the value hands he has here. So I felt like this leans a lot more to a draw than not, I guess.
Well, I mean, the way that you would look at that is you say, like, even let's just do it out in a very even way. Let's say that there's no way to actually accurately do this, but say that you think that the guy is going to check raise sets 50% of the time on the flop, right? And then when we get to the turn, now he check raises. So now you would look at that instead of having 6 combos of sets, now he has 3 because he would check raise 50% on the flop. So now you're looking at this like, all right, well, he's got 3 combos of value that has me beat if he check raises 50% of the time on the flop. And then how often do I think that he's playing, combo draws like, like a 5-6 of diamonds,
Ace deuce of diamonds.
Ace deuce of diamonds, 3x of diamonds, something like that, 5-6 of diamonds. I mean, most of those combo draws, if they're of the 15 out variety, are going to have, almost like 30% equity against you with one card to come. If he has a set, you have like maybe 8% equity. So if you were looking at it and you said, oh, there's an equal combo of combo draws, 3 combos versus 3 combos of value, half the time I'm 70%, half the time I have 8%, that's 78% divided by 2 is what? 39% total equity. I mean, that's how you would look if that was the case. Now,
Right.
that's making some pretty big assumptions. I assume if you had any other worse value here, you're just like snap mucking, like if you had king 4 or something like that, right?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely fold like king 4 for sure.
And this guy's a winning player here.
This guy is like maybe a
Average.
break-even player. Like, yeah, probably
Ooh,
slightly losing.
I don't know, man. If he's slightly losing here, I could see folding here. It sounds to me like maybe you're thinking that he might have more combo draws than sets just because of the way that you think he plays the flop.
Yeah, and I also think we can get some more information on the river. It's not necessarily a Fifth Street chicken spot because I do think he would jam some bluffs, but I think he's much more likely to jam value. And if we both call, which is highly likely, I don't think he's going to jam the river with the VIP. Just going to snap him off with like a king, probably.
Well, the weird thing about that, you're talking about like if I proceed here, I'm going to call, and if you call, even if let's just say the VIP gets out of the way, if you call, the pot's going to be like $2,200. You guys are going to have what, like 28. So you're going to have like about what, almost like a pot and a half size bet left. The only thing about that is that I suppose you do have enough stack depth where he still might continue with the bluff, but you can get into situations where, especially if you're shallower, which you're not, sometimes people give their opponents a reverse free card where like they don't just put it in with what they think is the best hand. They wait. And then what ends up happening is that the guy doesn't bluff the river. So but he would have called off on the turn because he had like such a large combo draw. So now all of a sudden you've just given him a free shot at his stack. Now you are definitely deeper here. I guess the other question that I have for you with this VIP behind you is that if you're calling here with king 10, does that mean that you are calling with sets of 3s and sets of 4s? Because I assume that you'd probably play them the same way here up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really consider what I would do with this set, but I'd probably just call. And it sounds like you're saying I should just jam.
No, I'm not. No, I think you have stacked up to just call. I'm just saying that if you had a set here, would you just call to try to almost like stay balanced so that he could still have bluffs at the end? Are you concerned about like the VIP behind you, like having some sort of draw? I mean, if you had pocket 4s here, it's like the nuts here, right? Like you can't lose right now.
I would definitely just call with the set because VIP is going to call a lot more. And if I like jam, I might chase him out with the king or whatever he has. Like, though he doesn't fold before the river a lot, so maybe I could have just ripped it in with the set here. But I probably just call.
So it sounds to me like you called. Is that right?
Yeah, I definitely called.
And what did the VIP do?
He calls as well.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, you get in these situations where, like, if you have a set and people are like, well, I want to, like, protect against the draws. Like, if a guy's got a naked diamond draw and you had a set, he doesn't have that much equity. He's not supposed to be calling, like, 800. Now, with top two, it can get a little bit dicey. But you can, I mean, with the VIP in there, I was going to say, like, a lot of times you can logically deduce what the draws are. Like, I mean, you're more concerned with the backdoor diamonds coming in and the straightening cards. But if there's a VIP in there, maybe you have some representation of like backdoor Broadway draws. Like he shows up with like, I don't know, like Queen Jack or some bullshit like that. But you put in 3,000 on the turn, so the pot's now 31.95, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the river is the 5 of spades.
Okay, so that brings in some of the stuff. It's not the best card. It's not like an 8 or a 9. Ace deuce comes in, 6, 7 of diamonds. Does he ever have like, he's completing for what, 1 chip more in the big blind? Is that right? 1 chip more?
Yep.
Could he have 6 deuce of diamonds? So there's 3 straights out there that could beat you.
Right.
And it's a private game. Like big blind, 2 suited cards, right? He's got 6 deuce of diamonds. So 6 deuce of diamonds, 6, 7 of diamonds, and ace deuce of diamonds here. So it's 3 hands completed on the combo draw side.
And he might not raise like ace 5 of diamonds either, though it's just a 5 now.
So now what? 5 of spades. So it's king 4, 3, 10, 5. Yeah, no problem.
Big blind jams. So he jams for like just below 2,000, I believe. I'm sorry, 2,400.
I mean, as crazy as it sounds, like you almost have, I think you're almost protected. This is what I was talking about, like going way back to the flop, Nate. And it kind of sounds like that you set this up where you feel like you're almost protected now against the guy bluffing you here with the VIP behind you.
Yep.
And the river does change. I mean, it brings in, it's not a 9. I mean, let me ask you this question. What if the river was like an offsuit 8 and he jammed?
I would call more often if.
Okay. right. I mean, the 5 brings in 3 of those hands. So, I thought it was really close on the turn where you could pitch it. Now it's a 2,400 into 31.95. By the way, too, you also have to overlay the fact that like you could lose to the guy behind you now too, right? Once in a while. The VIP guy.
100%.
The VIP guy could have the one with 6, 7. So I think now it's a much, much easier fold with the fact that the guy's like bluffing into 2 people, betting into 2 people, and you have to beat them both, right? Like he's got to be bluffing, and the other guy behind you has to have like a hand that he didn't run into.
Right, 100%. And I felt like this was a clear fold at this point.
Yeah.
And there's definitely merit to maybe folding the turn as well.
Uh-huh.
But I fold here and +1 calls.
Okay. Hero fold. Oh, and the +1 calls. Wow. Okay. Wow. I can't imagine. +1 calls. I mean, I guess there is a scenario where you have the best hand here. Some of the time, the big blind's got to be obviously bluffing, and then +1's calling with some bullshit like 4-3 or like king 5, right? Or something like that.
So +1 calls and rolls over aces.
Oh, no.
And big blind taps the table and says good.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. So big blind taps the table. Let me ask you this question, too, which I don't even mean to rub it in. If you called the river, would the +1 have overcalled with aces?
Probably. Like he's definitely super VIP, so it wouldn't have surprised me.
Wow, that guy's got some. Wow, that's why I said like it comes back to the beginning of what I said in the beginning of the show about like how we don't know that necessarily, but it's like how sometimes you play. It's like the big blind really shouldn't be having. He shouldn't really be bluffing. I mean, the bluffing frequency should be lower when when you've got this guy that's always calling down with these types of hands. So that would make me want to fold more if I were you, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
It
was a tough hand to stomach in the moment.
Oh my God, yeah. That's one that I talk about walking off in our definition of terms. over on CLP. That's a tough one, Nate. But again, Nate's coming out with a new course on Crush Live Poker, the blueprint to Crush Live Poker, and it will be out in a few weeks. Thank you very much for the call, sir. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Bart.